Yeah, I just clicked no.
Okay, while people complete that, well, let's be fair, a short but brutal task, which I'm sure I'm going to have to go into Richard's office about next week and justify why you all think I'm correct. My justification for that will be. I want to say a little bit. Is everyone signed in? Everyone ready to go? Good. I want to say a little bit about this lecture as a trigger warning, because you've got to give trigger warnings for stuff which are bad, right? First of all, does anyone know where the title of this lecture comes from? You all suck in a big way. This is a lyric from a song. It is a lyric from a song. You could look that up, but no, never mind. Culture, alienation, boredom and despair. What am I trying to tell you right from the beginning of this lecture? There's a clue in the title of the lecture.
Is this how we feel when we use social media?
I don't know, is it?
Sometimes.
Aha. Sometimes we feel alienated, bored, and in a state of despair when we use social media. Now, do you think that is the aim of social media? To make people feel bored, in despair, alienated from the world? Does anyone think that's the actual aim of social media?
No. It's just a side
You,
effect.
just no, will do.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, Reese, you're wrong. And you're completely wrong. The aim of social media is to make you feel alienated, bored, and in a state of despair. You might think, no, that can't be so. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, you're wrong. That is exactly the aim of social media. It is not to keep you in those states, but to make you go into those states is a very important part of what social media does. Can anyone tell me why? Why would something set out to make you feel that way?
So you fill the gap by consuming, buying some.
Thank you. That is the perfect answer. You fill the gap left in your soul by the use of this by consuming more and more content in order to feel better about yourself. So you create the conditions by which the product that you are selling is indispensable in the first instance. You create a feeling of loneliness, alienation, boredom, and existential despair about your life. And where do you turn to fill the gap? You turn to Instagram in order to fill that gap that has appeared in your life. Or Snapchat, or TikTok. TikTok fills my void. Whenever I feel bored, the first thing I do is go on TikTok. An hour and a half later, I have learned nothing. I don't feel any better about the world. In fact, I often feel worse. But, hey, it's an hour and a half later. I'm an hour and a half closer to death. And isn't that the only important thing at the end of the day? I have consumed other people. I have consumed myself. Consumption is everything. So, it is a very serious point that the actual structure of social media itself is to encourage these states of being. These states of mind are advantageous for social media. No less the point being that you are more likely
to consume in a commercial sense when you feel depressed or bored. You are more likely to fill that gap by buying things. And at the end of the day, the commercial partners of social media benefit when you buy things. So it makes sense that if you create the conditions by which people feel bored and alienated from the world, and they're going to solve that by purchasing meaningless shit, and we've all done it. We've all been in that state where, like, oh my god, everything blows. I am so bored with life. It sucks at the moment. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go on Amazon and buy something completely pointless. And for just a second, everything feels better. You get that little message that says your order has been completed, and you think, ah. And then you go back to feeling like shit a couple of seconds later. Because it's temporary.
I just did that 2 days ago, so.
Yeah, I did it yesterday.
Oh, then you're frustrated, like, when is it gonna come?
Yeah, when it fucking
Yeah.
Prime my fucking, but I want it now. Why isn't there some guy at that big fucking place down opposite the new campus waiting for my order to bring it?
There is, actually. I ordered headset and they came the same day.
Oh,
But they,
my
al-
guy is obviously off this week.
they also tried.
Because the Mario fridge magnets that
But
I
they also
ordered
tried
have not yet arrived.
to
I
take-
want them. That will make me feel better. That will make me feel better about the moral, psychic, and spiritual abyss that is my life. I am an empty shell of a human being. And buying meaningless shit that I see on TikTok is going to make me feel better, if only for a couple of seconds. And really, that's all life is about. It's feeling better for a couple of seconds, and then going back into the deep structural hole in which we exist. This is the tenor of what I'm going to speak about today. So, this lecture will, for some, be brutal. For some people will be nodding along, like, yeah, I knew this shit. Yeah, this is right up my street. But for some of you, it'll be like, oh no. For those of you who feel that way, that's okay to feel that way. It's okay to live in denial. Denial's an important state of affairs. Okay? A lot of people live in denial. So, you know, for example, I live in the denial state that I'm teaching you something meaningful. Some of you live in the denial state that you're learning something. If we all lived in this state, we wouldn't even have to be here. We could just go home. I pretend to be teaching, you pretend to be learning. We could all go and do whatever, you know. It's just the odd one who wants different things. We're going to talk about nihilism and how social media is inherently nihilistic. We're going to talk about how social media is designed from the bottom up to make you feel individually sad. We're going to talk about addiction. Social media addiction is a term which is used in a far too inexact fashion. The truth about social media addiction is, to an extent, we are all addicted to social media. However, it is not the case that we are pathetically addicted to it. It has become intertwined with our lives in particular ways that mean it has to be in that way. I take no responsibility for your mental states, okay? I barely take responsibility for my own mental states. So if this makes you feel sad, go eat some fruit. You know, drink 2 litres of water a day, whatever you need to fucking do. But, you know, take drugs. Take drugs. You know, go to the doctors, get drugs. Amazing. Drugs are free, man. We, to a great extent, lead our lives on social media. Yeah? Social media is a conduit to what we do. It is an accompaniment to our lives. To be without social media is a virtually impossible task. It is, if you like, you know, if I say the word familiar, do you know what I mean? You know, like witches have a familiar. Social media acts as a kind of familiar for all of us. It is there, it is always with us. Now for Gate Loving, social media is normal. It is absolutely normal. It is the normal part of our life. It is not abnormal. It is not something separate from. It is not something apart from. It is simply part of our lives. Now, he believes that what social media has achieved in the time that it has been part of our lives is to reformat us. So he's using a computer analogy. If you take a hard drive in a computer and reformat it, what you do is change it. You scrub what was there previously, and you change the structure of that device to work in a different way than it did previously. And for loving, social media has reformatted us all. The way things were in the past, it is pointless to talk about, because we cannot be that way. A world without social media is never going to exist. It is not going anywhere. Those who wish, oh God, so much better when I was a kid than there was on social media, you might as well be talking about life on Mars. It's never coming back. It's never going to happen again. Those conditions will never be met. The reformatting of our internal lives is also a reformatting of society as a whole. Society as a whole has been completely transformed by social media, and it's not going back to something that existed previously. For loving, the platform and the individual are completely inseparable from one another. We as individuals are defined by how we use social media, and social media is defined by us as individuals. They are co-constructive of one another. The self, whatever the hell that is a product of what we do on social media. It's not exclusively a product of that, but social media is a critical element of it. It is a very important part. So social media has become the social. I've got lots of friends. Well, I don't have that many friends, that's a fucking lie. I have friends. I want to put a quantity on it. I'm 43. So I've got friends who've got kids who are like 15, 16, it's in that age, 13 to 17. It's about, got a good pile of friends who've got kids in that age group. And like, every one of them has the same thing to sell. My kid is a nightmare. I said, yeah, I told you that, I'm not that stupid, but having kids, what's the matter with you? I said, no, that wasn't the reason why. I said, okay, so wrecking your body and wrecking your life, it's not the reason why the kid's a nightmare. Okay, tell me more. And then they will go on to say, well, remember when we were kids? Yeah, vaguely, it was a million years ago, but yeah, there's been a lot of alcohol taken in the intervening period. It's sketchy at best. Do you remember when we were like 13, 14, what did we used to do? Well, we used to go to the skate park a lot, and we used to play football on the beach all summer, and do shit in parks, and set fire to stuff, stuff that kids do, right? Yeah, well, my kid doesn't do any of that. Good. So really good. Your kid might get through like teenage years without being in accident and emergency every week for having a broken bone. That sounds awesome to me. Nah, kid, they're just in front of their computer screen all day. They don't go out, don't seem to socialise, don't seem to do any of that stuff. I mean, what am I going to do? Nothing? Why would you want to do anything? One, I don't care about your kid, firstly. You decided to have it, you fucking raise it, don't ask me for it. But secondly, what is wrong with what is being said there? That vignette, which you all hung on every word I can see, so engrossed in my storytelling technique. What's wrong with what my friend is saying?
You said they're not socialising?
Indeed. And what is the truth of it?
That they are. They kind of are.
That's all they're doing. That's it. The idea of what the social was in the past did correspond to this notion that, what are we going to do in the summer? Well, we're going to get skates, we're going to go down the skate park, we're going to sit around all day, we're going to smoke really badly made hand-rolled cigarettes, and we're going to bullshit for the rest of the day, and then we're going to go home at night. That was basically the social when I was 13. Okay? That's how it works.
So, 1992, 1993, that was it. We didn't have the means to communicate in the way that people do today. They didn't exist. I didn't know anyone who had a mobile phone. Guess what? Because nobody had a mobile phone. They existed, but you needed to be really wealthy to order to have one. There were no such things as social networks. They just simply didn't exist. The social was something different in that world. And it's kind of weird to me, but people my age are now waking up to the idea that the social means something different today. We have had these services ourselves, but it draws attention to the fact that those who grew up in this world have a different world to those who adapted to this world as it emerged. People like me who had to make adaptations to the emergence of the digital in this way, we have a particular relationship with the digital. That relationship is not the one that you have. And it's certainly not the one that the teenage children of my friends have. They do everything through this. It's half term this week, and my particular consternation of people on WhatsApp has been, can't get my fucking kid to leave the room. So, yeah, because they're on half term. They're not going to? What are you expecting them to do? Do you really want these kids to do what we did when we were kids? There won't be a bus stop in Swansea that isn't burnt to the ground. It's really good that this is happening. There's far less shoplifting. You know, there's far fewer street fights. McDonald's is not getting things thrown through the windows. It's a different world. It's lovely. I really like it. Outside is safe. When I was a kid, kids were just marauding everywhere, stealing cars, beating the shit out of each other. This is amazing. This is like a new utopia. The social is social media. Those kids are socialising with one another, but we can't see it. What I mean by we is people of my generation. We don't see that as the social, because our notion of the social itself is tied to a different set of ideals, principles and practices. We don't see the social in the same terms. But undoubtedly, the social has transformed completely. Gramsci, that is Antonio Gramsci, had a very famous quote. "The old is dying and the new cannot be born. In this interregnum, a great deal and variety of morbid symptoms appear. When the old and the new are in conflict with one another, the dialectical process between the two leads to a number of problems." At this point, we have a conflict between what the notion of the social is. And if we don't clarify what the social is, we don't understand it properly and we miss whatever problems are emerging from it. And this lecture will look at some of the problems that are emerging from it. Now, I'm going to look at the poll instead on Monday rather than look at it here today. So I will address what you guys have said, Nick, but I'm going to do it on Monday instead. If you look at the political structure of social media, you will see that there are two separate models for social media. Social media is dominated either by the American notion of power, which is concentrated in particular corporations. Facebook, Meta, I should say, right? Snapchat, etc. Or this notion, which is more associated with Chinese social media, of government surveillance and control. What is important to note about both those political models is that we aren't in them. The user of social media isn't considered important in either structural model of social media. The westernized version of social media is that this is something which should be controlled by the corporation. I've been through this before with you guys, but hands up any of you who own shares in a social media company. No. But you all use social media, right? Be a bit silly to do this module if you didn't. So, this whole model where things are concentrated in corporations
locks out the vast majority of the users. Now we have on the other side the idea of a contribution to state control, where social media effectively works as a surveillance mechanism on the population of its users. Unless you're in the gears of state, this is not serving your interests. The citizen or user does never exist in these things, and this tells us something important, that the platforms that we use are not, at the end of the day, interested in our lives. And what I mean by life there is in our goals, our aims, what fulfills us as individuals. They are not there to make us feel good. They are yet there to utilise us towards a particular goal which is not in our life plan. So the platforms that we use actually position us in a way to say, you suck, you're not important, we're just here to use you. In the Western model, this is known as the age of surveillance capitalism. One of the most important books over the last 10 years was written by the American Shoshana Zuboff, who came out in 2019. Zuboff argues, on the back of a lot of scholarship which has gone on for a number of years, but I think Zuboff puts it the most eloquently out of anyone since. A new economic order that claims human experience, so our lives, what we do, as free raw materials for hidden commercial practices of extraction, prediction, and sales. Everything that we do is a raw material to be mined. You're familiar with the idea of what a raw material is, right? So in an industrial process, you will have a factory that uses raw materials like, I don't know, iron ore and coal and water, raw materials which can be found in the earth, to make something new, like steel, for example. If you combine those three things in the right way, you end up with steel. That's how steel works for us. So raw materials come in, product comes out. This is how manufacturing works. For Zuboff, if you like, there is a manufacturing model. Raw material is us and our everyday lives. Product is the stuff that they sell. What is it that they sell? What is it that a social media company sells? Does anyone know?
The data,
The data about what?
us, everything we
This is like 99% correct. It's great. This is brilliant. Yeah. So what is it exactly though? It's all this data that we do. What is actually the thing? Because there is a manufacturing process here. Caitlin.
It sells you as a product to advertisers because they want to make sure they can cater everything perfectly to
This
you.
is a nice step, this. So we've got all this data, and then you're a product. Are you that product right now? As you sit here in this room? No. Okay. So that's the manufacturing process. It's to take all those things about you and make you into something that can be sold. What we are doing is creating a data subject. It's a very important term. Social media companies make data subjects. They take the data there and create a subject out of it. I feel like they optimize you. If you want to use a sort of computational term for it, there's an optimization process. Take you and optimize everything about you to make you better to be sold. Now that will involve not just counting what you can about this person, also getting rid of the shit that doesn't matter. Yeah, you don't need to know some things to be optimal in terms of sales. You just need to know the things that are important. So like, what makes you happy? You know, the smell of a rose. Fuck that. Do you think that's something that can be sold? Nah, that's not going to be sold. The fact that I like on the bus to sit on the seat where the wheel is underneath, because I like that motion, they're not going to be selling that stuff. They're going to be selling the stuff that can be realised in cold, hard transactional value. There are things about you which are not important according to this. It might be fundamental to who you are. Okay? But that's not important. Because the data subject is not who you are. It is what you are optimized to be in terms of sales. So, Zuboff calls this entire process a parasitic economic logic. Social media companies are parasites. They feed off what you do. They do nothing of value on their own, only feeding off, which the production of goods and services is subordinate to a new global architecture of behavioural modification. And this is very, very important. It doesn't work unless there's behavioural modification. The whole model collapses unless you have, at the same time, social media companies pushing you towards particular products.
Is it because they want to fit you in a buyer persona that then they can kind of sell to advertisers?
So you sell that persona to advertisers, but also you've created a persona to sell to at the same time.
Yeah.
And so you are constantly in this now. It is one of the things that people get really hung up about social media is this. You get adverts on social media, right? Somebody's going to say it in this room, or at least a few people are thinking it right now. Yeah, I see the adverts, but I don't buy from them. You're thinking it, right? That's not the fucking point. Let me give you an example of why. Did anyone in this room play Pokemon Go?
Yes.
Good. Me too. I wrote a book about it. Because I do shit like that. I play something for a few months and fuck me, I'm going to write a book for this. That's what I did. In that book, I outline why thinking about adverts is the wrong thing. Pokemon Go used very few adverts. And yet, its advertising revenue was colossal. Because Pokemon Go wasn't selling you adverts explicitly. One of its biggest link-ups was with Starbucks. We've all had Starbucks, right? Yeah? How can you not? There's about fucking 10 of them in every town. Do we have one here in the university any longer? We used to, right? It
I
calls.
think there were two and now
In
there's one.
in one of the
James
medical
gotta have like those
things.
Yeah, there's something. Oh yeah, in health sciences they got.
Yeah.
I can't be fucked to walk over there. Now, Pokemon Go has an advertising link up with Starbucks. How does it make its users drink more Starbucks coffee?
Did they put the Pokemon in Starbucks?
Well, yeah, of course they did.
challenges in Starbucks.
Put gyms outside. Put rare Pokemon in the vicinity of Starbucks. It's not fucking brain science, is it? You make people go where you want them to go for your commercial partners. Pokemon Go was a pure example in taking that logic and actually making people move to it. So you put the bits that people really want in front of the stuff where you really want them to go. There's no nature. You know, this is, you're looking at me like, oh my god, that's ego. Yeah. 100 million Pokemon Go players across the globe. All being led around towns and cities to meet the aims of the commercial partners of the creators of that company. A company called Niantic, whose parent company is called Alphabet. Can anyone tell me the other name for the company Alphabet?
Google.
Thank you. Pokemon Go is Google. Google has advertising partners that it uses as a platform for. This is the problem when people get hung up on the idea of advertising. It isn't about advertising, it's about behavioural change. Those people who walk through cities chasing after Pokemon in particular ways, guess what? They kept walking through the city the same way, even when they stopped playing Pokemon Go, because they knew the way to do it then. It created a new way of going through urban space for a lot of people. And guess who was lining the streets?
commercial partners are the companies involved with that game. It's a long-lasting effect.
And Google Maps the same.
Of course, yeah. Google Maps waive everything. You ask Google Maps for directions, it's not taking you the optimum way for you, it's taking you the optimum way for fucking Google. It's free to use, right?
Yeah.
They're going to make the money back somehow. These nudges, as we call them, are everywhere in social media. You're being pushed content on Instagram that is encouraging you to go places, to do things in your vicinity. You may not be aware of it because it's a subtle art, but it is happening. You are being encouraged to do these kind of things all the time. This is what we mean by behavioural modification. We are continually being nudged towards certain things. Can I do the thing with you guys? I didn't teach you MS-100, did I? I was sick. I was recovering from an operation. Okay, I don't know if Chris did this or not, so I will tell you now. Just very, very quickly, why are you here? I want you to write down just a line. Why are you here? And what I mean by here is, why are you in Swansea University? I'm going to give you, like, another 15 seconds. I want it to be that quick. It's a really good question, isn't it? Fuck on. Okay, so, does anyone want to tell me why they're here?
To learn and have fun.
What a load of shit. Absolute nonsense. Why are you here, Alice?
Because when a picture of the university was portrayed to me, it was like a very outgoing picture, highly ranked. It looked like a very official university.
They lied to you then.
I know.
Okay. No, I am. Okay. Caitlin.
I didn't know what else to do.
You didn't know what else to do. Fabulous. That's the answer that I like, because that actually is exactly the same as the answer I would have given in 1999 as well. Jem, why are you here? To get a degree. You could have done that anywhere though, right? So why are you here?
I already lived in Swansea.
Lazy, I like it. It also suits my interests. Maddie, why are you here?
Because of the marketing.
Because of the marketing. Finally, somebody, a lot like what Alice was saying, is getting at it. You're here because of marketing largely, but you're also here because back in, what year is it, 2023? How old are you guys, like 20? So we're talking about 2017, 2018 time. Back then, Swansea University bought you. Those data profiles, data subjects I was talking about, Swansea University bought a load of them. They do it every year. They go to data brokerage firms and buy up thousands of data profiles to start nudging you towards this institution. They do it in very, very subtle ways. They partner up with other organisations to push products at you which are aligned with this university. Then when you get a little bit older, 16, 17, they will start nudging other things. They don't do it on their own, they're part of a consortium of institutions that do this. And it's not some bloke in Swansea University coming up with this strategy. They hire experts to do it. They're outsourcing all of this. They're paying for it. But this is how marketing for an organisation of this size works. You buy 150,000 data profiles and start marketing to those profiles. So, in the 3-year gap between when your profiles are bought, and by the way, you're not supposed to be buying kids' data profiles, but you do. In the 3-year gap between when that happens and when you go to university, you will have been bombarded with thousands and thousands of relevant messages on social media about this institution. They may not be explicit, you may have never seen an advert about Swansea University. but you would have seen content which has been identified as being relevant to the promotion of this institution as part of a wider marketing mix. You will have been exposed to thousands of pieces of it because you have all been bought. Every one of you. Not one of you in this room was not part of that buy-up. And here you are. Did it work? 27,000 in tuition fees alone. That's how this works. Behavioural modification, even on a tiny scale. It doesn't have to be as explicit as the story Alice told, that you were, given an image of this high-ranking institution that's really slick and, things work there. I mean, to an extent, that's not absolutely untrue. But in the daily functioning, it's completely untrue, right? There's a variation in how that works. Somebody who lives in Swansea, like Jem, it's even more explicit. You were getting this shit since you were like 14, 15 probably, or pretty constantly. So there is no accident as to why you're here. You were picked. Now, you might want to ask, what happened to the other fucking 147,000 people who didn't come? And so, okay, well, it's a bit of a static industry at the end of the day. It's a numbers game. Yeah, and it doesn't cost very much to play. So, that is the economy that we're in. This is what Zuboff talks about when she talks about the structure of our economy. We're in a surveillance economy where capitalism is marked by the continual surveillance and nudging of individuals towards particular outcomes. And social media is a critical platform to achieve those goals. The critical platform for the achievement of those goals are social media platforms. For Bernard Stiegler, the speed of technological development has left our society far behind. We are still asking questions about this. You are all pondering at the moment, well, that can't be right. What I've just explained. Well, guess what? It's too late. That question is way past now, because you're already in the second year. There's no way out now. You're done. You got to see it through. It's a shame I couldn't have explained this to you in week 6 of the first year. That would have been nice, right? But unfortunately, I had to have my leg reconstructed. Sucks to be me and you. The truth is, asking that question even then is irrelevant because those decisions were made years and years ago. With no conscious awareness on your part, you didn't consent to it. I didn't consent to it. As an employee of this institution, I think it's abhorrent to behave in that way. To target young people like they're cattle to be slaughtered in a fucking abattoir, which is ostensibly the same model. I think it's disgusting. Can I do anything about it? No. If Swansea University didn't do it, everyone else would do it. Everyone else is doing it. So, they're really, this idea, it's way past the debate stage. There's still a lot of people who are hung up on, well, is this morally right? It's a bit like asking, is it morally right for somebody to set fire to you when your leg's already on fire? You're not worried about the morality then. Put the fucking fire out would be my first instinct, right? These things have already happened. Now, the product of this, according to my favourite academic group of all time, the Invisible Committee, this is the genuine title of their book, Fuck Off Google. That is the literal title. You can go and look it up on Amazon. The purpose of social media is to isolate everyone. What that model does about university selection is to keep you isolated. It has no consideration of how you might socially interact with other people, how you might develop social relationships,
how a community might emerge from your interactions with other students. Some of the traditional, when universities sell you this rubbish about the university experience, that's what they're referring to. But the actual model of recruiting students has nothing to do with any of that. They're selling you a myth. They're selling you something that existed 25, 30 years ago and no longer exists in today's society. Because, for two reasons. One, social media has atomized us to a particular extent. If you want to have a word to take away from today, atomized is a beautiful one. Transformation of a compound into something atomical on its own. And social media does atomize us in particular ways. It separates us physically and temporally from other people. And the whole model of this is designed to do it. University recruitment does treat you like an atomic unit, something separate from everyone else. You are buying individuals, you're not buying a group. It would be different, perhaps, if the university's targeting was like, we're going to see, we're going to try and buy 3 people from one school who are friends with one another. It's really fucking hard to do. Really, really difficult. Probably isn't a word. But I kind of like the message. But that's not what happens. So, the net result of this is we think we have access to the world, but actually what happens is we're walled off from it. Platforms and networks make decisions for us about what content we receive and why, and then we receive that content. The world itself isn't that content that we get. It is shaped for us, and therefore, we are actually, rather than having access to the world, our access is very carefully decided for us to make it appear that we have access to the world, but actually we're walled off from significant parts of it. You've heard this in terms of things like filter bubbles. You all hear the word filter bubble, right? The idea people on the right can't talk to people on the left because they only get news and opinion from the left, which confirms themselves. Yeah, but it goes much further than that. That example of Google Maps is another good one to explain this. Some people get given different directions on Google Maps. You might think, what? Yeah. Depending on your socio-economic status, you are given different directions on Google Maps.
Or like when you walk in front of shops and
What's the point of giving people who come from place X, which has a really low socio-economic profile, directions past high-end shops? They ain't going to shop there. Give them directions through appropriately priced outlets. Those people who come from this. Now, for that group of people who are given the shit shops, that's a world-shaping thing. This is how you find your way through a city. And you find it by looking at these locations. That stuff over there may as well not exist. Or if it does exist, it exists in an exclusionary capacity. This is not for me. Google doesn't even say I should go there. So why should I go there? Yeah, you get it? This is the principle of the politics of social media, because it transforms us into this atomized unit of economic value. Our economic value dictates how the world will appear to us because of that. This is, if you like, the net effect of surveillance capitalism. We surveil people to turn them into units of economic value, and the world that is presented back to them is commensurate with their economic value. It's not nice. This is a root cause of alienation. And alienation is huge. All across social media. We feel alienated. People that exercise freedom of speech on social media are doing nothing more than creating content which they do not own for a corporation in which they have no stake. Because all of our content is stuff that we don't own for corporations in which we have no stake. So every time we do something that is positive and life-affirming, all we are doing is doing that. This is fundamentally alienating. Marx's concept of alienation argued that workers in the Industrial Revolution were alienated from their labour because their labour was taken and given back in terms of wages, but the surplus value was used to make others rich. This was a fundamental alienating force. What Kobeck says, and by the way, Kobeck's book is not an academic book, it's a novel. I Hate the Internet is a novel. I recommend you all read it. It'll take you about a day. It's really, really funny. It's very, very good. It's better than most academic texts about social media, I'll be honest with you. What Kobeck is arguing is that that concept of alienation is even bigger in social media, because everything to do, our heartfelt thoughts about the world are simply things for others to sell for profit. There is no deeper meaning. That's grim. Some other choice bits out of this book, which I love. My favourite bit at all. Instagram is the first social media platform which the only sane reaction is hate. Because the way Instagram is structured, it is structured in a way to make you hate other people. Hate is the actual emotion that you feel when you see people living that perfect life that you see on Instagram. And that hate drives you towards trying to achieve it. Because the things, people that we hate have the things that we want. Hate basically works that way. I fucking hate my neighbour. He's got a sweet motor. I want that bitch car. I hate that guy.
But isn't hate too much of a strong emotion? Like, say I hate that
Hate.
person because they have what I don't
The
have.
stronger the emotion, the better. Really is the case. That's why Kobeck uses the word, I think. The stronger the emotion, the better the response. Instagram wants you to respond with hate, because if you hate the lives of people that you see on Instagram, you're more likely to want to achieve them. And to achieve them, what do you have to do? Buy the crap that Instagram is selling, right? So this is how it works. Social media is a system with the purpose of maximizing the amount of bullshit people type into their phones. The greater the amount, the greater the profit. Social media works as the world's biggest bullshit amplifier. And the whole purpose is the more bullshit there is, the more money they will make. Okay, 5 minutes? I mean 5 minutes, we start again at 2.
How are we?
I drove here.
Oh, let me close my laptop a
Yes, I mean, if I knew that,
But no, I'm not scared, but I just think like when I
Oh, could you do
Yes, I
thought I knew what me and wait outside, but he was leaving. Just in the room. I think the last thing he didn't say anything, which is like, like there's something more clarified as well.
Are you telling me he's lost his alcohol?
No, I said no, I said he's got the box.
Definitely not.
Super advised. Also, are you gonna stay on campus after this or not? And then you get back. This morning at 6. Oh, yeah. But finally you guys got to see each other because you didn't get to spend Valentine's or anything. Did you do a late Valentine's or did you just decide to? Really?
Time is short, I'm even shorter. So, I love being in competition with people. It makes me feel happy about my situation in life. I love it when people don't listen to me. It doesn't at all make me angry and make me mark assignments like 10 marks down already. So, one of the key things we need to understand is that our agency on social media is compromised. The structural model of social media brings compromises to who and how we can act as agents on these platforms. We live in a time of post-truth, of cultures of relativism around our identity. That contributes to an idea that we are able to do anything that we please, and we are able to realize ourselves in different ways. But Kobek and others, social media, fame, the internet, they strip us of agency. We live in an age where the aim of agency is to make ourselves into something which we cannot be. This is why Kobek says we should hate Instagram. Instagram provides us with images of fame and deludes us into the idea that we can be that way. That by our labour, we can somehow become famous and important. But famous and important people don't use Instagram. If you're famous and important, you don't post anything on Instagram. Does anyone seriously think Kylie Jenner has ever posted something on Instagram?
Someone else does it for us.
Of course she does. You have teams of people doing it for you.
I mean,
Only-
she posts stories.
No, she doesn't post stories. Kylie Jenner doesn't know the password to her Instagram account.
I mean, that's probably true.
Kylie Jenner has a team of people that she pays really well to post stories to Instagram.
Yeah, but she still has to film them at least.
No, she gets other people to film them.
No, because like when you hold the phone to your face, it's obvious you're holding
No,
the phone to your face.
there's somebody holding the phone. Kylie Jenner is not fucked to be making Instagram stories. I can assure you. The Kardashians don't know how to use Instagram. Because they've never had to.
Probably.
Because they have an entire industry of people helping them to maintain their image. You can't be Kylie Jenner on your own. You have to have a whole team of people working for you to be Kylie Jenner. We are deluded into thinking that these are possibilities for us. That life can somehow work in this way. It doesn't. Anyone who makes their own content for a social media site ain't gonna be that person up there. There are limits to what you can achieve. This is why the poor are doomed to the internet. Because it's only poor-ass people who actually make and produce their own content. If you're rich, you get somebody else to make the content for you. If I was rich, I wouldn't be making content. I'd hire somebody, a really well-trained graduate from Swansea University who knows all about social media management to come in and do it for me.